You know his name. You've seen his face on posters, t-shirts, maybe even your science textbook. Albert Einstein, the genius, the legend, the man who changed how we understand the universe itself. But here's what they don't tell you. Before Einstein became Einstein, before the Nobel Prize, before the theory of relativity, before the world knew his name, he was just another struggling young man, drowning in rejection, fighting against a system that didn't want him, and questioning whether he'd ever amount to anything at all. This is that story, the story they don't teach in schools. The story of failure, persistence, and the long, painful road to recognition. Because Einstein's journey to greatness, it wasn't genius that got him there. It was something far more powerful, something that every single one of you watching this video already has inside you. Let me take you back to 1900, Zurich, Switzerland. Picture this. A 21-year-old Einstein has just graduated from the Swiss Federal Polytechnic School. Today, we'd call it ETH Zurich, one of the most prestigious universities in Europe that he should be celebrating, right? Wrong. Einstein wasn't the star student. He wasn't the professor's favorite. In fact, his professors barely tolerated him. You see, Einstein had this problem. He questioned everything. He skipped lectures he found boring. He studied what he wanted to study, not what they told him to, and the professors? They hated that. There was this one professor, Heinrich Weber. Einstein clashed with him constantly. Weber taught physics the old way, the traditional way, and Einstein wanted to learn about Maxwell's equations, about the cutting edge of electromagnetic theory, the new ideas that were revolutionizing physics, but Weber refused. "You're a smart boy, Einstein," he'd say, "but you have one great fault. You never listen to anyone." Now here's where it gets painful. After graduation, all of Einstein's classmates, every single one of them, got positions as assistants at the university. Teaching positions, research positions, the pathway to becoming professors themselves, every one of them, except Einstein. Professor Weber? He gave the position to two other students, Alfred Wolfer and Jacob Erat, not because they were more brilliant, but because they were obedient. They followed the rules. They didn't question authority. Einstein applied for position after position, university after university, letter after letter went out, and letter after letter came back rejected, or worse, never came back at all. Months passed, then a year, then 2 years. His father, Hermann Einstein, was so worried about his son that he did something heartbreaking. He wrote a letter to the renowned professor Wilhelm Ostwald, begging him to give his son a chance, to give Albert a position. Any position, can you imagine? Your own father having to beg strangers to give you a job because nobody else will. Ostwald never even replied. By 1902, Einstein was desperate. He was barely surviving, giving private tutoring lessons for a few francs here and there. His relationship with his family was strained. His girlfriend, Maliva, was pregnant. The academic world had completely shut him out. Finally, through a friend's father, he got a job, not as a physicist, not as a researcher, but as a clerk, a technical expert, third class, at the Swiss Patent Office in Bern. His job? To evaluate patent applications. For 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, Einstein sat at a desk, reviewing other people's inventions, electrical devices, mechanical instruments, things that had nothing to do with the deep questions of physics that consumed his mind. This is where most people would give up. This is where most people would say, "Fine, I guess I'm just a patent clerk now. I guess academia wasn't meant for me," but not Einstein. You see, Einstein had something that grades couldn't measure, something that his professors couldn't see. He had an unshakable belief that the questions he was asking about the universe mattered, that the way physicists understood space and time and light was fundamentally wrong, and he was going to prove it. Whether anyone wanted to listen or not. So here's what he did. By day, he'd work at the patent office. But every spare moment, every lunch break, every evening after work, every Sunday, he'd work on physics. He'd fill notebooks with calculations, with thought experiments, with ideas that would seem crazy to anyone else. He called the patent office his worldly cloister, a place where his mind could wander free, where he could think without the pressure of professors looking over his shoulder, without having to conform to anyone's expectations. And then, in 1905, everything changed. 1905. Historians call it Einstein's annus mirabilis, his miracle year. In that single year, while still working full-time as a patent clerk, Einstein published 4 papers that would change physics forever. The first paper proved the existence of atoms when many scientists still didn't believe atoms were real. The second paper explained the photoelectric effect, the work that would eventually win him the Nobel Prize and help birth quantum mechanics. The third paper introduced special relativity, shattering our understanding of space and time, proving that they weren't separate things, but woven together into something he called space-time. And the fourth paper contained the most famous equation in the history of science, E equals mc squared, proving that mass and energy were the same thing, unlocking the secret of the stars, and, unfortunately, the atomic bomb. 4 papers, any one of them worthy of a Nobel Prize, all written by a 26-year-old patent clerk who couldn't get a job as a university lecturer. But here's the thing, even after these papers were published, even after the physics community started to take notice, Einstein still couldn't get an academic position. He applied again. University positions, lecturer positions, nothing. It wasn't until 1908, 3 years after his miracle year, that he finally got hired as a lecturer at the University of Bern. And even then, it was an unpaid position. He had to keep his job at the patent office just to survive. Finally, in 1909, 4 years after revolutionizing physics, Einstein got his first real academic position as an associate professor at the University of Zurich, the same university where his former classmates had been professors for nearly a decade. So why am I telling you this story? Because I want you to understand something crucial, something that might change how you see your own struggles. Einstein, the man we call the greatest genius of the 20th century, was rejected over and over and over again. Not because he wasn't good enough, but because the people in power, the gatekeepers, the professors and administrators, they couldn't see his potential. They couldn't recognize his brilliance because it didn't fit their mold. And if that could happen to Einstein, it can happen to you. That exam you failed, that application that got rejected, that teacher who said you'd never amount to anything, that job you didn't get, that graduate program that turned you down, those aren't verdicts on your potential. They're not the universe telling you to give up. They're just obstacles, gatekeepers who can't see what you're capable of, systems that weren't designed for people who think differently. Einstein kept working when no one believed in him, when no one would hire him, when his own professors actively worked against him. He kept working because he knew deep in his bones that what he was doing mattered. And that's the secret. That's what separates the people who make it from the people who don't. It's not genius. It's not even talent. It's persistence. It's showing up day after day, even when the world says no, even when you're working at a job that has nothing to do with your dreams, even when years go by without recognition. You keep working, because here's the truth that nobody tells you. Recognition is slow. Success is slow. The world is terrible at recognizing brilliance when it's standing right in front of them. But if you're doing work that matters, if you're solving problems that need solving, if you're creating something valuable, eventually, the world catches up. It took Einstein almost a decade from graduation to recognition, a decade of rejection, of struggle, of working in obscurity, but he made it. And so can you. So the next time you're struggling, the next time you face rejection, the next time someone tells you you're not good enough, remember Einstein. Remember the patent clerk who changed the world. Because if he could do it, facing everything he faced, what's your excuse? Keep going, keep working. Your breakthrough might be closer than you think.